So next company to present is InDex Pharmaceutical. And with me today I have the CEO, Jenny Sundqvist, and the CFO, Johan Gelelius. And as usual, you are more than welcome to post your questions. And I hope you will enjoy the presentation from InDex Pharmaceuticals. So Jenny and Johan, welcome, and please carry on.
Thank you very much, Klaus, and thank you for inviting us. So we will give a short presentation here of InDex Pharmaceuticals and a bit where we stand in our phase 3 program. That's the plan. And please, we welcome any questions. So I will start off by the usual forward-looking statements. I think most of you should be aware of it by now, but still required to pose it, that there's risk with investments. So, InDex Pharmaceuticals. Our mission is to improve the lives of patients suffering from immunological diseases. We were founded in the year 2000. We are based in Stockholm on Karolinska Institutet, or close to there. That's where we have the origins. We have been listed on Nasdaq First North since 2016. And we have a very nice group of shareholders, and among those 4 major institutional organizations. Link, they own just above 13% of our shares. Then we have HBM in Switzerland and the 4th AP fund, Fjärde AP-fonden, who both own just under 10%. And then SEB, in different formations, is the 4th largest owner. We do have a broad portfolio of preclinical stage assets, our gems, but our main asset and what we will focus on here today is cobitolimod, which is being developed for ulcerative colitis, and we have currently started our phase 3 program. And the team who are working on this, taking the product towards market, is the following. We have a board of directors consisting of 6 people, and they all have long, extensive experience from either drug development or financing or deal-making license agreements. So good background in terms of where we are as a company and which stage we're operating. Then we have the InDex team that consists of 18 persons. That's a mix of full-time employees and specialized consultants who are brought in to the extent that they are needed. It's a diverse team. There's 67% women, both on the board and in our operational team. We have members from 7 different national origins, so that's quite unique for such a small team. And a third have PhDs in relevant immunological areas. So that's quite a specialized team and very good. So we're developing cobitolimod for ulcerative colitis. For those of you who may be new to that, it's worth a bit of an explanation of what that is. It's a serious chronic inflammatory bowel disease, and it has quite disabling symptoms. So when you have your flares, you get bloody diarrheas, very frequent during the day. You might need to run to the bathroom, anything up to 20 times a day, and you never know when that's going to happen. You might have a fever, you might have an ache, you might suffer from anemia if your diarrhea continues over several days. So quite disabling symptoms. You also run an elevated risk of colon cancer. If you're diagnosed with UC, colon cancer is a quite serious form of cancer. So that's obviously a high risk, important risk. You also have a quite low quality of life. And in research, it shows that UC patients, they consider their life quality around the same as cancer patients. So low scores. And it's mainly due to a number of reasons, and they're related to these periodic flares with the symptoms I mentioned. So when you have ulcerative colitis, you can go for long periods of time when you don't have symptoms and you can feel fine. But you never know when these flares are going to come. So it's a lot of anxiety and stress of not knowing when am I going to be feeling sick, and that puts a toll on you. And obviously when you are in a flare, you're unable to do much else than just take care of yourself. So there's high rates of depression related to the anxiety. There's high rates of unemployment, high rates of sick leave, both from school and work. So that's quite a toll on society. It's a lifelong disease. There is no cure to it, and you're often diagnosed at a fairly young age. So most commonly between the age of 15 and 30. So it's a long-term disease that you have to live with for the remainder of your life. We are aiming to develop cobitolimod for these patients in the advanced setting. So what does that mean? If you have ulcerative colitis, there's a number of lines of treatments. So first line, if you present with mild symptoms, you come to the doctor, you always try first line. These are old medications. If they don't work, you move to the second line. That's glucocorticosteroids. If that does not work, you move to the third line. You might also go straight to third line if you present to the doctor with very serious symptoms. You might move, so it's not sequential. So you might move straight into third line. That's the advanced therapies. And then the fourth line is a colectomy. That's when you, by surgery, remove part of the entire colon because there's nothing that can help you. There's no medication to help you. But that's the last resort. Obviously, we would like to help patients before they get to that point. So in the advanced therapies, third line, where we aim to compete, there's a number of factors that make it the fact that there's quite a high unmet need. So the medications available today, they only help a small fraction of patients because they have limited efficacy or patients develop a tolerance towards the medications. Many of them also can cause quite serious side effects. I'll get into that in a bit. All of the medications available today act on the whole body, not only the colon. So you get what's called systemic effects when a medication affects all of you and not only the area you're trying to relieve. So there is quite an obvious need for safer therapies and a new mode of action that you're not developing a tolerance towards. So going into a bit more around the side effects I mentioned, there are currently 5 classes of drugs approved for the advanced segment. There's TNF-alpha inhibitors, there's the integrin inhibitors, there's JAK inhibitors, interleukin-12, interleukin-23 inhibitors, and S1PR modulators. All of these drugs in some way work to suppress the immune system caused by an elevated immune reaction. But by doing so, obviously you also can get a lot of other diseases because your immune system is repressed. So some examples of side effects you can get from these medications are infections, quite serious. You can get pulmonary infections, for example. You can develop skin cancer. Even some, like the JAK inhibitors, have a black box warning on them, and they have death side effects. So these are not to say that you will get all of these, but you run the risk of getting a serious side effect by taking these medications. And imagining living with a quite debilitating, serious disease, taking a medication in the hopes of getting better and getting another very serious disease. That is tough for patients. So what we are aiming to do with our product is to develop a new class of drugs, the toll-like receptor 9. It will be a new class, so instead of 5 classes in the market, we will have 6 classes of drugs available. And if everything goes according to plan, we aim to have at least as good a efficacy as the already approved products, but with a superior safety profile. So to date, we have no known drug-related serious adverse events. So that would be a huge benefit to patients because you obviously, as I said, you already have a serious disease. You don't want to add other serious diseases to that. And it's also a lifelong disease. So you need to make sure that you stay as healthy as you can for the remainder of your life. So this is what we're aiming to do with cobitolimod. And some news in our development, which is quite positive, that was announced on August 2nd, is that we have a new patent granted in Europe that provides much stronger protection for cobitolimod. It's a formulation patent, and it gives us protection and exclusivity until September 2042. With a possible extension of up to 5 years. So that's quite an extension before we have 2038. So we added a number of years to that, which makes our business case stronger. It's also a strong patent. It covers the use of cobitolimod as a rectal enema formulation, which is the one that we plan to market. And it covers any dose, any disease, and any patient. So it gives us wide protection. It's also a strong patent because it's less vulnerable to challenges. There's no what's called previous patents or publications. There's no prior art. And the most important reason it's a strong patent, it adds a new category of patents to us. So before we had strong protection via what's called use patents, which are based on how you use a product. This is a formulation patent, so it adds a whole new category. And what's also important with that is that some countries in Asia, for example, China, does not accept use patents. So previously, we've not been able to have patent protection in certain countries. These countries do accept formulation patents. So we're going to apply with the same patents in those countries, and we will hopefully in the future have patent protection in a number of additional countries from what we have today. So that's very positive news. And as I said, this is for the product that we're using in our current phase 3 trial. This is our phase 3 program. It's ongoing. It consists of 3 studies. There are 2 induction studies. One of them has started. It's called Induction Study 1 because it's a creative name. And then we will start Induction Study 2 once we have results from Induction Study 1. All patients who respond have some sort of positive effect in the induction study. They are moved over to what's called a maintenance study. In the induction study, that is 6 weeks per patient. What you aim to do there is actually to get rid of the flare. So patients who have a flare, who are in that acute state of the disease, they come to the doctor. If they're included in the study, they get our drug, and the aim is to take away the flare. The purpose of the maintenance study is to ensure that you avoid the flare in the future. So you're in remission and you want to stay in remission, and that's the aim of the maintenance. So of course, in all these studies, we compare to placebo because that's what regulatory authorities require. So we compare our drug versus placebo. That's the setup. Induction study 1 and the corresponding patients who move into maintenance, that's what's ongoing. Those are in the solid line. Induction study 2 is not started. That's what's shown in the dotted line. So it's up and running. It's approved in 30 countries around the world, the ones marked in dark green on the map. We now have over 200 clinics on board who are up and running. We're very proud to be working with Ukraine. They are doing an excellent job. I cannot emphasize enough how well they're progressing. The quality that we get from the Ukraine is also excellent. So all respect to those clinics. And I'm happy to announce in January this year, we did announce a delay, and we said we predict that we will reach our dose selection milestone in Q4. And I'm happy to announce that we are on track for that. We are progressing well. So the measures we have taken to speed up are working, and we are on track to deliver our dose selection milestone in Q4 this year. So a bit more around what is the dose selection milestone. So that is when 30% of patients, so in total, we're going to have 440 in Induction Study 1. When 30 of those have completed Induction Study 1 and we have analyzed the results, that's when we'll have the dose selection milestone available. We will get 2 pieces of information from that milestone. The first one is whether we can continue the study in our phase 3 program or not. There's 2 reasons why it could be stopped. One is called a futility analysis, and that means that if there is no chance that the active drug, in our case cobitolimod, will be better than placebo, then the study will be stopped, because it's obviously unethical to subject patients to a drug that doesn't have a chance of being better than placebo. The second reason it could potentially be stopped is because there's any type of safety signal. So those are the 2 reasons. Of course, we have not seen any safety signals previously, so we're hoping that that will be the case here as well. The second piece of information that we're going to get from this milestone is what dose we will continue the program with. We are currently testing 2 doses, 250 milligrams and 500 milligrams. Now, we will now get a decision at the dose selection milestone which dose to continue with, and the remainder of the study and the second induction study will only be concluded with whichever dose turns out to be the winning dose, what it's called. Our goal is to launch a product that provides at least comparable efficacy to what's already approved. Now, that means a 10 to 15% delta in clinical remission, but doing so with a unique safety profile. That's what makes this product unique. So from our perspective, we are equally happy whether it's 250 or 500, because we are aiming or hoping for at least comparable efficacy to what's out there. Our stronghold is the safety piece. So from our perspective, the first decision from this, whether we continue or not, is definitely the important piece of information we're going to get in Q4, which dose to continue with. For us, we're happy with either one. It's important to also note that the dose selection milestone is a blinded analysis. What that means is that there's an independent committee analyzing the data and giving us the answers what to continue with. So we will not have access to any efficacy data or see the results. Investigators won't know and patients won't know. So it's a blinded analysis, and we won't know any of the data that actually supports the decision. So we won't be able to share it either because we won't know it. So that's a bit more explanation in depth around the dose selection milestone, which is upcoming in Q4 this year. I will now leave over to Johan, who will speak a bit more about our excellent license agreement.
Thanks, Jenny. We in May this year then signed a license agreement with Viatris Japan. We're very happy and pleased with that. It was a great transaction. It was underpinned by the very favorable and positive results that we get from the Japanese regulatory authorities in the summer of 2022. The deal then includes that Viatris Japan, I will come back to them, will then be responsible for register and commercialize cobitolimod in Japan as the territory for ulcerative colitis. We will take care of the global clinical trials and the PK study, etc. So there is a split of duties, which is very clear from the agreement. So a little bit about Viatris Japan then, or Viatris as a global firm. It's a US-based global pharmaceutical company listed on Nasdaq US then. Maybe not that well known, but it's a merger of two well-known companies, Mylan and Upjohn, in 2020, and now have around 37,000 employees all over the world, and including Japan, with quite a large subsidiary in Japan then. In Japan, there is also focus on the GI therapeutic area, and we're very pleased then that the Viatris then had the same view as us then on the potential of cobitolimod for the Japanese market, but also in total, of course, then. So that's a great news for us then to have Viatris on board, and we can then both then underpin the importance of Japan and with the help of Viatris, but also then piggyback on Viatris as a company as well, then, because there are a lot of other expertise that we can tag into if needed then. So the financial terms, of course, are of interest. And we received an upfront payment of $10 million. It was received overnight, so it's already on our bank account. And you can also see on our cash account at the end of June that we reported that we have got an extra cash then. There are also a number of different milestones, both on the development side, but also, of course, then sales milestone. Very traditional setup of the license agreement. And these can then, in gross amounts, then amount up to $40 million down the line then. And on top of that, as normal then, we will have percentage royalties then for the sales in Japan, and they can be up to double digit then for sales in Japan then. And that is then based on the sales that the Viatris Japan has in Japan then. So I think all in all, very nice license agreement, and we're pleased with that. And I think that's really underpins the potential cobitolimod, and we see this as a first step, maybe for other license agreement, but also for commercialization of cobitolimod all over the globe then. So great news. Next, there is some interesting events coming up. Of course, we have a focus on the study progress. That's of course one of the key things then, but there will be other things then that are very interesting in the coming months during the fall. We have this very huge congress called EGW then in Copenhagen this year, and we have the chance then to present our very positive PK study that we then announced in March this year. This time around, then we have the chance to explain this to the investigators, to the physicians, etc., and more have a dialogue around on the study results. And I think that's very good for the understanding of the potential cobitolimod. We will also have a booth at the event, and then there's a chance then to interact with the physicians, the investigators, with other people around in the industry, etc., and make cobitolimod and InDex more known to everyone. Then very important for phase 3 program to be visible, even if we're not in the marketing phase, we will be there hopefully then down the line. We will also then invite our investigators in the conclude study then to drop in and discuss anything around the study and get some good ideas, and hopefully share ideas between the investigators, etc. then. And fourth, because all of these important people are present at these huge congresses, we try then also then to have a chance then to meet our KOLs. Then we have them both on board in the European advisory board, but also in an North American advisory board. And so there's a chance then for us then to meet and interact and discuss, and also understand the trends that they have picked up. So I think that's a very important event as well. Then. Of course, as normally, we have the Q3 report then coming up on November 23rd. And sometime during Q4, we haven't had the final dates set yet, and we will then communicate, as Jenny alluded to, then the dose selection that will come in Q4 then as we have predicted and promised earlier as well. Then we will also then update the overall timeline, which we then indicated as a delay then when we communicated a delay in 2023 then in January. We will also then, as there been a request around a comment on the financial position and how we foresee the need for potential top-up financing to be able to complete the conclude study, then the induction study number 1. So all of that, I think, is up back to you, Jenny, and you make a little bit summary, then we are open for Q&A.
Yep. So to summarize InDex Pharmaceuticals for those who may be new to the company, as I have spoken about with our patient Felicia and with the drugs approved on the market today, there still is a high unmet need in ulcerative colitis. We are aiming for a unique product profile. So if everything goes to plan, we will be the first to launch with no known drug-related serious side adverse events. And we will be the first to launch a new class of drugs, introducing a 6th class to the market. We have large market potential with $1 billion of peak year sales. We have positive phase 2 data before entering a phase 3 program, which is up and running. We have a strong cash position, 412.5 million SEK as our cash balance end of Q2. We have strong institutional shareholders, both Nordic and European, and we recently signed an excellent license agreement with Japan, which is with Viatris Japan, with excellent financial terms, and that's also a very strong validation of our case. So that was a introduction and a bit of an update on the company. We'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, thanks a lot, Jenny, for a very good presentation, and thanks, Johan, for running through the deal with Viatris. And there's actually a lot of questions coming in here, so I don't think we have time to answer all of them, but I will post them to you afterwards, and then we can mail the participants with the right answers. I have answers to some of them already. I know the company pretty well. If we back a little to this very important milestone coming up in Q4, Jenny. So when you have to decide, you have the efficacy and you have the side effects, and you already showed in earlier studies that side effects is really, well, not showing up at all, which is of course very good, and you show good efficacy on the 250 milligram dose. When you decide what doses you want to use, those people who were included in the induction study 1, as this cohort of the 440, are they progressing into the new dose, or are they abandoning the study?
So you mean, for example, if the 250 is the winning dose, the patients who were in the 500 and currently are maintenance, will they be continuing on 500 or 250?
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa. Well, so all the patients will continue, but the thing is that we will not be able to use efficacy data for the dose for maintenance that is the losing dose.
Okay.
So we can use those patients for safety measurements, and the safety data will be collected, but we will not be able to use the efficacy data for the patients in maintenance on the losing dose.
Okay, good. So in that respect, out of those 440 patients, well, that's around 110, a little more. They will progress. No, that's 25%. Sorry, it's more. They will. So the rest of the people you sign up, they will just start up on the new doses.
That's correct. So from the time point that we get the decision on which dose we should continue with, we'll only use that dose and placebo from that point on. Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And then in terms of recruiting patients, is it going as expected? You're still progressing there?
Well, as we announced in January, the progress was slower than was originally expected in the study. So there were a couple of reasons that were mentioned back there why we were slower than expected. It was there's some lingering COVID effects that took longer to battle through than we thought. The war, Russia-Ukraine war, had a huge effect on our study because we had many clinics planned in both Russia and Ukraine. We're not proceeding in Russia, so we've had to find new centers to replace those. And there's also quite a number of trials running, and it's a placebo-controlled study. So I want to spend a bit of time explaining this. So if you're a patient and you have quite serious symptoms and you feel really bad, and you're being asked, would you like to enter a clinical trial, or would you want to have this type of drug? Now, I want to say this type of drug might have side effects. It might give you relief, it might not, but it's a try. Or you can enter a clinical trial where you will be randomized into either an active drug or placebo. Now, that's the challenge. A lot of patients don't want to take the risk of being put on placebo. So they choose not to enter a clinical trial because there's advanced drugs approved now, even though they have serious side effects. But that only tells you how serious this disease is if they're willing to take a drug with those side effects. So in terms of clinical trials, that's what makes it challenging. We are required to compare ourselves to placebo. That's what regulatory authorities require. But it's difficult to recruit to placebo-controlled trials. And this is an industry phenomena, so we're not the only ones who are having trouble recruits in UC trials. I know, for example, the head of R&D at Takeda recently went out and spoke about the difficulty in recruiting to UC trials. So it's a general problem in terms of recruiting patients. And that's not the same thing as once you're on the market, because once you're on the market, the patient's going to choose between, do you want to take drug A, which has this effect and these possible side effects, or do you want to take drug B, which has this type of effect and no side effects?
Thanks, Jenny. I'm sorry I have to interrupt the presentation, but we're running out of time. And you know, the questions I got here, I will post to you and Johan, and then we can put them on our side afterwards. So thanks a lot for both of you for participating in our seminar, and enjoy your day.
Thank you, Klaus.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye. Cheers.